President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. And the floor is given back to the Deputy Co-Prosecutor to resume the questioning, and the Chamber wishes to inform the Deputy Co-Prosecutor and the lead co-lawyers for civil parties that you still have 40 minutes together.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, I would like to now ask you some questions about the Khmer SAR movement that you mentioned yesterday and today. You testified yesterday that it was your understanding that Northwest Zone cadre and 17 April people who ran away when Southwest Zone cadre started arresting people had formed the Khmer SAR. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And can you tell the court how you learned the information that it was these individuals who had created that movement?
I learned the information from people within the village, within my village and my commune. Some of them from the regiment and battalion ran away, and they created groups to come and steal rice and stuff from the people. A group of 4 to 10 people was created to search for those who ran away from regiment and battalion and reside in cooperatives.
I'd like to read to you a quote from your WRI. This is answer 12 FE3/9580. Quote, I know that during the chaos, some Northwest cadre escaped into the forest while some others were arrested. And then at answer 13, the ones who had escaped into the forest created the White Khmer movement. Is it, close quote, can you tell the court, therefore, when the White Khmer movement, what year it was created?
To my recollection, it was created in 1978.
And do you know how many people formed the White Khmer movement?
To my knowledge, there were only a small number of people involved. There were a few people who led the movement, and those people already died.
Do you know if they had any sort of armaments? Did they have any guns, trucks, anything of that sort? And if so, how much of each did they have?
មានអីធំដុំទេ
They did not have any heavy weapons. They did not have any vehicles. They possessed only small weapons like AK, say.
And do you know how many? You said AK. Are you referring to AK-47s? The gun called the AK-47?
I did not grasp the situation. I only knew that they possess only two types of weapons, AKs and say.
Do you know how many of those they possessed?
I did not know the numbers of weapons they had.
Do you know who was in charge of the Khmer Sar movement, as you understood it?
I did not know the name of their leaders. I knew only a few of them, but those people already died. After the Vietnamese had entered Battambang province, they liberated people from the forest. Those people in the white movement did not resist the Vietnamese. They threw away their weapons and they were reintegrated into the as civilians.
Thank you. I'd like to now move to a different topic. I'd like to ask you if you knew anyone of Vietnamese ethnicity in the Northwest zone that were there after 17 April 1975.
I knew at that time ethnic Vietnamese who had lived in my area since the old regime. There were 5 or 6 families of them. They were not sent away in 1975 because the husbands were ethnic Khmer and their wives were ethnic Vietnamese. They were not sent away. They were kept to live there. For other Vietnamese families, they were sent away by boats. Many were sent away by boat along Tonle Sap River through Phnom Penh. Only couples of families remained, especially those with Khmer husbands, Vietnamese wives. But later on, when the situation became increasingly chaotic, some people were arrested while others escaped into the forest. Some of the people who were in the fishing unit with me were arrested and killed because they had relatives who were ethnic Vietnamese.
the families of Vietnamese that were sent back by boat, when did this occur? Was it, if you don't know the exact month and year, was it shortly after 17 April 1975? Or longer than that?
បាទកាលហ្នឹងបន្ទាប់ពីខែ
It was after April 1975. It was not in April. It was after April. That were probably in July or August of that year.
And do you know how it was organized that these Vietnamese families would get on the boats and leave? Were announcements made? Did people come and inform them? How did they organize for all of these Vietnamese families to leave and travel by boat to Phnom Penh initially?
At that time, they assigned their people to collect people from various villages and communes in order for those people to be sent back to their country in Vietnam.
Do you know how they identified who was Vietnamese, of Vietnamese ethnicity?
I did not know how they organized this, but for those who did not speak Khmer clearly, they were identified as ethnic Vietnamese. Some of the ethnic Vietnamese people were born in Cambodia and had spent a long time living in Cambodia, while others were born in Vietnam and just arrived.
You mentioned some individuals in your fishing unit who had Vietnamese relatives who were taken away and killed. You also mentioned that initially, at least, individuals who had Vietnamese spouses were not sent back to Vietnam. Did anything happen to individuals who had Vietnamese spouses later on in the regime?
Later on, they did not allow the people to have a relationship with the Vietnamese, regardless of those with Vietnamese wife or husbands. They were all swept clean. They were arrested and taken by boat and killed along Tonle Sap Lake.
And do you know when that occurred, more specifically?
To my knowledge, the incident happened in late 1978. But I cannot recall the exact months. It took place at the time when the water in the river rose. It was perhaps in July. It was the month when the nearby forests of the river were flooded.
Did anyone ever tell you why people of Vietnamese ethnicity were sent away and then later on were killed?
បាទខ្ញុំធ្លាប់ឃើញ
I witnessed. I tried to hide one of them who came with me at Old Preg Rite. It was the place where we stayed temporarily for 5 to 6 days. The soldiers came by boats to search for them, and they asked us if there were any Vietnamese living there, they would be punished. They would not be spared. Regardless of whether they had Vietnamese wives or husbands, they had to face the punishment. I told them there were no Vietnamese living in this area. There was a Vietnamese family whose husband had lived in the area since the Sangkum Rinayum time. But those soldiers said, no, we cannot spare them. We had to arrest them. The family were all arrested and taken by boat, and they were killed somewhere in the river. No Vietnamese families were spared in 1978. They were all arrested and killed.
I'd like to now move on to my final topic of questioning for you, Mr. Witness. Did you know of any Cham who lived in the northwest zone after 17 April 1975?
បាទត្រង់
Talking about ethnic Cham, I knew, but there was no remarkable actions taken against them compared to the one taken against Vietnamese. The Cham people had a different ways of living from us. They did not eat pork, and in that time they were forced to eat pork. Some of them refused to eat, and as a result they were punished. Some of them were killed, but I noticed that the majority of Cham people survived the regime. Only those who resisted, who opposed to do what were instructed, were killed.
And how did you gain this information about Cham being forced to eat pork and then those who resisted being killed? How did you know about this?
I knew about this through some of the ethnic Cham people who also worked with me in the fishing unit at the river. They told me that they would be spared as long as they followed the order, not opposed the order when they were required to eat pork. So whatever food that were given, they had to eat. that time in each collective dining place there were many people. For example, around 100 people come to eat together. So if there were fish to eat, we had to eat fish together. And I noticed that some Cham people survived.
Thank you very much for answering my questions, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, I have no further questions.
President, thank you. The floor is now given to the lead co-lawyer for civil party to put questions to the witness. Bạch Ong. Good morning, Mr. President and your honors. I would like to request the permission from your honor, from Mr. President, to give the floor to Counsel Lau Chung Thi. President, your request is granted. Lau Chung Thi. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, parties in the whole chamber. My name is Lau Chung Thi, the civil party lawyer. Mr. Witness, I have some questions to put to you related to a number of events that you had experienced or witnessed. My first question that I would like to ask you is about the marriage that took place at your workplace. Were there any marriage organized at your workplace, and if so, how they were organized? Answer. During the regime, the marriage were organized differently from marriage nowadays. Some people loved each other while others were forced to marry. For example, my case, I were also arranged to get married during that regime. It was in 1975 that I was arranged to marry my wife. It was on the 31st of December. It was late 1975 and about to start 1976. There were 30 couples organized to marry that day. Some of them wanted to marry, while others did not even know who their spouse looked like. So the marriage at that time was very simple. We were simply required to hold each other's hand and make the commitments and follow the instruction and the lines of Angka, and that was it. Question. Were you aware that the weddings organized came from the decision or arrangement of any leadership? Answer. At that time, the wedding ceremonies were arranged by some of people from the zone, including Ta Klein, Ta Hom, and Ta Sum. Those people presided over the ceremonies. Question. A while ago, you talked about what the people from the Southwest Zone did in your areas. That when they came into your area, something happened. I want to know whether or how the Southwest people organized or created their structure of supervision of your area. Answer. At that time, I knew to some extent about what happened. When they arrived, they started to remove people in the leadership of the Northwest Zone, including those in the leadership of the cooperatives. After they had removed the leaderships of the Northwest Zone, and then they started to create their leadership machines that from the high level down to the lower levels. But for my unit, they did not make any announcement. They simply came to make arrests. And then they started to collect all of us and send us to various cooperatives. They dispersed my groups and put us in different cooperatives. Question. After they had organized like that, were there anyone from your unit disappeared? President, please hold on. Council Victor Kope, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. No objection, but an observation. The question to us is clearly relevant, so no problem with relevance. However, I'm a bit surprised that civil party lawyers are asking questions about rebellion or purges in the Northwest Zone, because I believe, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that whatever happened in the Northwest Zone was outside the scope of 002/02. I think that was the continuous position. Civil party lawyers opposed all our requests in relation to rebellion in the Northwest Zone. So these questions, although relevant to us, surprise me.
Now, Junti, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to withdraw my question in relation to a few questions I put to you at the beginning about your marriage. Had you and your wife known each other beforehand, before the marriage? Answer. I had known her before the marriage. Question. What about other couples? Could you tell about them? There were a few couples, two couples who had not known each other well, or who had not seen each other's faces before the marriage. They only proposed to Angka that they wanted to marry, and after that the marriages were arranged for them. Lawyer, thank you. What happened next after the marriages? Were they forced to consummate their marriages afterwards? Have you heard of that? Answer: I heard of it. And for those who got married on the same day as me, did not experience such a force. In some other locations, Angka forced them to get married. The would-be husband and wife did not love each other and did not want to consummate the marriage. After their marriages, I mean for those couple, they divorced. Some of them, after their divorces, were taken away to be killed because they did not comply with the party's line. Lawyer, thank you. Following the marriages, could the wives and husbands live together? Answer: they could stay together for 2 or 3 days after the marriages, and after that 2 or 3 days they were separate into different location. I mean the wives would be sent back to the work sites, and the husbands were sent back to the army. They were separated to work in different work sites, and if they wanted to visit their spouses, they would have to seek permission, and the request needed to be granted by them. Otherwise, they could not go and see their spouses. In fact, at the time, mostly the husbands wanted to go and visit the wives, not the wives wanted to visit the husbands. Lawyer, perhaps it is my last set of the questions. What was your feeling after you got married? Did you have any thinking about the children that you would have after the marriages?
បាទគិតទៅចំពោះ
I was concerned. I was worried about my children. Nothing happened to my children, but in that regime, everything belongs to Angka. Eating and stuff that we used belongs to the collective community. We did not have any personal ownership, and we did not have any property or belongings to be handed over to our children. What we was given at the time was rice and a meal. Freedom, education that we wanted to give to our children was dependent on the policy. Lawyer. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I run out of questions now, Mr. President. I am done. President, thank you. And the last floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Kyu Sompon to put questions to the witness. You may now proceed.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Witness. My name is Ante Kise. I am the international co-lead lawyer in the defense of Mr. Kyo Sampan. I have essentially follow-up questions to ask you regarding what you have already said in this chamber. First, you talked about joining the army and the fact that after you had been assigned to a trade unit, were you still considered to be a soldier after you had been assigned to this trade unit?
បាទការ
My force was not armed. My soldiers were not armed. We had only 4 or 5 rifles or weapons. And we were under the zone army.
Donc vous étiez rattaché à...
So you were part of the zone army. I understood from your answer that you had 4 or 5 weapons at your disposal. Did you retain these weapons or did you give them back at some time?
Excusez-moi.
Excuse me, I have a problem with my earpiece. I'd like to change it before you respond. Sorry.
Excusez-moi.
Sorry for that. No, you can respond to the question if you remember it. My question was, I'd like to know if at one point or another did you give these weapons back?
បាទ
I did not give back or keep the weapons in the warehouse. Those weapons were given to us and we were armed. The weapons were under our possession. 5 or 6 of us were armed and we had to secure the security within the office with the weapons.
D'accord.
All right. You said that you had heard accusations against Vang, and you heard that he was accused of having distributed or supplied weapons to a mobile unit. Can you tell us if the members of the mobile unit were authorized to have weapons?
បាទ
The mobile unit consisted of a single youth. They were gathered and put in the mobile units to carry us so that they could build the Krahot Dam. In fact, the weapons were not yet armed. Those 5 or 6 people, it was alleged and accused that Tavanj was prepared to arm those people.
Vous avez entendu...
You heard about these accusations. My question is, in what Tasum said to you, did he indicate if he had found weapons that had been distributed somewhere? Is this information that you received?
I did not receive such information from him.
je voudrais maintenant...
Now I would like to bring up another point that you just spoke of with the co-prosecutor, and you also spoke of it earlier. You talked about the arrival of cadres from the southwest zone into your area, and you indicated that they replaced the cadres from various units. In your statement E3 5890 before the OCIJ, you talked about a period during which these Southwest Zone cadres worked with the people from the Northwest, and I will quote, it's answer 36, you say the following. We learned that they came from the Southwest Zone thanks to the information circulating among us, the residents. They worked with their counterparts from the Zone Northwest, but they actually had been authorized to spy on those from the Northwest. At the end of 2 or 3 months, they started to report on wrongdoers. For instance, they accused my fishing unit of having poured fuel into the water and of dumping fish into the river, but we had not done that. End quote. My next question is about what you said. You said in that section that for about 3 or 4 months, the people from the Southwest group worked with the people from the Northwest. I understand from that the arrests did not take place immediately. Did I understand that correctly, and can you please clarify?
Allow me to inform the court that regarding the arrest of the Northwest Zone cadres, in fact, at the beginning, it was not the people from the Southwest Zone arresting the Northwest. The Northwest people arrested their own members. And at my fishing unit, they at the beginning went to live and work together with us, and a few period and later we heard that there were arrests from time to time, and we heard that the Southwest Zone people came to our location, and the arrest happened extensively in early and late 1978. This is all I know.
I'm having trouble understanding your answer. If I understand correctly, in your answer you say that the arrests of cadres from the Northwest Zone initially were carried out by other cadres of the Northwest. Did I correctly understand your testimony?
I did say that. That was the beginning, and later on, the people from the Southwest arrest the Northwest.
D'accord.
Okay. From your testimony, I also understood that in your fishing unit, initially, you worked with people from the Southwest. Did I correctly understand your testimony?
That is correct. they came and asked to work together with us at the outset at the fishing unit.
D'accord. Donc,
All right. Therefore, I would like a clarification on what you said earlier. I don't know if it was in response to the co-prosecutors or the colleagues from the civil parties, but you said that you were the joint head of the fishing unit so that you would not be arrested. How could you hide your position in the fishing unit since the Southwest Zone people had actually worked with you in that unit? Could you please clarify?
បាទការហ្នឹង
I could do that. After Sum had been arrested, the southwestern nurse had been removed from my fishing unit. So at that, starting from that point, meaning that from the arrest of Tasum, people from the southwestern southwest had been removed, and at the time they was trying to find out who had links to the Sum group. Those who had been working together with me at the time concealed the fact that I was the deputy, and they told those people that people from the southwest had already been arrested and sent to Koko. They could not find out where I was, and they could not know my identity.
je ne sais pas si c'est...
I don't know if it's a problem in the interpretation, but I'm hearing that you're saying that the people from the Southwest Zone who came to work for a period of 3 or 4 months with your fishing unit in order to spy on people from the Northwest Zone, that they were withdrawn? Is that what you're saying?
The situation became more chaotic at the time. The leading structure was not clear. The cadres from the Southwest who were working in respective units went to different locations. I did not know where they were going to. 7 or 8 families were placed in my cooperative, and other families were sent to other units or to Phnom Tapadai. So, as I said, those people from the southwest who had been sent from Battambang was transferred to some other location before me, and that happened a few times, not just one time. That those people were transferred to elsewhere.
I apologize for interrupting my colleague, but I would like to raise an interpretation issue. In the WRI of the witness, when the Southwest Zone cadres were coming to the Northwest Zone, he uses in English 2 different words, investigating and monitoring. However, I understand that in the French translation this becomes to spy, espionner. I'm not quite sure if that is the same thing, monitoring or investigating. I know it may sound like a detail, but to us it's not a detail. So I would like to get clarification as to which word is used in Khmer.
Peut-être pour rebondir.
Perhaps to come back to this question, when you say the people from the southwest zone came to work within your unit for 3 or 4 months, do you know if they carried out an investigation? Do you know if they looked at documents to see how your unit or other units were run, the units in which they worked? Do you have any information on this topic?
They came to my location and they went anywhere with us. They did not come to lead us. They came to monitor and to try to get the information of the situation, and afterwards they would make the report.
Mon confrère Kong Samon vient de m'indiquer.
My colleague Kun Samon just told me in response to 36 that I quoted the word Khmer. Perhaps he can pronounce it in Khmer so that there is no challenge there.
Je conclus que dans
I've understood that the word was translated as it appears in answer 36, so that answers that question. We're close to the end. I have another question. You spoke about events relating to the Vietnamese who stayed in the territory of Democratic Kampuchea after some of them had been repatriated to Vietnam. Aside from the people that you talk about hiding in the forest at a certain time, do you personally know any people who were Vietnamese or from Vietnamese families in your area?
Regarding those who were Vietnamese, mixed Cambodian Vietnamese family, some of them, their husbands were Cambodian and some other family had a Vietnamese wife. I had known a few families. They had all been arrested before my group went to live in my cooperative. Those Cambodian Vietnamese families could not conceal their identity at all. At Kaj Ong Rotes, they also did the search for those families. They came in on the horse, they came on the motorboats, and some of the mixed family were transported on the motorboats to different locations. I was trying to conceal one mixed family at the time, but it was not successful.
Vous dites,
You say they came by horse or motorboat. Earlier you were answering the co-prosecutor's question talking about soldiers. Do you know which soldiers they were and who gave the order for these arrests?
I do not know about that. At the time, I had no more authority. I became an ordinary villager after I fled that unit or location. And after I left, the Southwest was in charge of that location. They were in motorboats, and they went to that location to cleanse the Vietnamese living along the river.
Là encore, vous dites...
Here again, you say he, at the time of this arrest of these Vietnamese, were you present and were you able to see the soldier who made these arrests?
I saw that. I was at that location. I was there, and those arrested people raised their hands together and they wept, asking me for help. The husband had been taken away to be killed first, and then it was the time for the wife and children. One child was successful in fleeing, and that a child survives the regime after 1979. I met that child in Bande Minh Chey.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez les...
Did you know the soldier who was carrying out the arrest?
I do not know them. I know and recognize one leader who was frequently visiting my area. I, in fact, do not know his name, but I could recognize his face. He was working at the logistics.
And since when was he working at logistics? Since when was this chief working at logistics?
Et pour être plus précis,
And in order to be clearer, was he working with the logistics when you were at the commerce unit?
I noticed that he was a new face when he was there to arrest people. He was not from the Northwest.
You did not answer my question. Was he in your fishing unit, or rather in your logistics unit, when you were there?
That particular chief was not working with me. I used to saw him at Saler. He he frequently visited the staff office.
So this was the staff office of which level? And this will be my last question.
I do not know his name and his position. Again, he frequently came to the office.
You're speaking about the office, but which office? You're speaking about the staff office but can you tell us which office you are speaking about? Was it an office of Division 1, Division 2? Which office are you speaking about?
Oh, the staff office belongs to the zone army. I was referring to the staff office belongs to the zone army in charge of divisions 1 and 2.
I am done with my questions, Mr. President, and I no longer have any time anyway.
President, thank you. The Chamber is grateful to you, Mr. Witness. The hearing of your testimony as a witness has now come to an end. Your testimony will contribute to the ascertainment of the truth. You may not be accused. You may return to your residence or to anywhere you wish to go. I wish you good luck, good health, and prosperity in your life. The Chamber is grateful to you as well. Duty Counsel Mungso 1, you may now be also accused. Court officer, please work with the rescue units who send the witness back to his residence or to any destination he wishes to go. And in the afternoon, the Chamber proceeds to hear the expert 2 TCE 98. But it is now time for lunch. The Chamber will take break for lunch and will resume at 1:30. Security personnel are instructed to bring Mr. Kisampon back to the waiting room downstairs, and please bring him back into the court.